Now, in addition to public DNS zones, Microsoft also has created private DNS zones. So this allows us, instead of always having to have a third-party DNS service that we typically, adjust in our VNet to have servers point to, we can actually use Azure DNS instead to actually host DNS for us. So let's head over to the Azure portal to take a look at this. So here we are in the Azure portal, and I'm going to click All Services, and this time typing in DNS, I'm going to choose Private DNS Zones, so we'll click that here. Here I can go ahead and click Add to create my private DNS zone. And similar to public, I'm going to go ahead and choose my resource group, so I'm going to call this SL-DNS, just going to keep everything there, and my instance name in this case, I'm actually going to use private.skylines.com as an example. And then once created, in fact, it even says here, you can link virtual networks to this private DNS zone after the zone has been created. So we'll click Review and Create. And we'll fast forward here as that completes. And that has now completed. I can go to that resource and we can see private.skylines.com there. And now I can see virtual network links here. So this is where I can actually link that DNS to a virtual network. I can click Add and choose that here. I can create a link name, scroll down, and this is where I'll choose my virtual network. But what I'm going to do here is actually close out of this. Let's go ahead and create a new virtual network. And we'll call this one DNS test. And I'm just going to choose that DNS resource group again. East US, I'm just going to create a default subnet range there, nothing to worry about too much here, because all we're going to do is once that's created, let's go ahead and provision 2 virtual machines in there. I'm going to provision VM01 and VM02, and then we can show you how the DNS records work there. So I'm going to go over to virtual machines, and that virtual network should be getting completed roundabout when I get to add in my virtual machine here. So I'm putting everything in this SL-DNS resource group so I can delete everything at the end. And so VM01. And I'm going to just use a Windows server here. And put in our username. Password, and then I am going to allow RDP access because I want to log into this machine to show how we can ping the other one using DNS. So I'm going to review and create that one first of all, and then I'm going to repeat and create number 2. And same again, let's choose our resource group, so SL-DNS, and I'm going to choose VM02, choose East US, choose the Windows option here, username and password when it prompts me. And let's just make sure that RDP is in there, that's good. And let's just go over and double check our network config here. We'll click that. And it should already pick it for us. And the first example, I didn't really check this, but it was good in the review and create. So SL-DNS test, that's the network we want to use, and put it in that same default subnet that we created. And we can see RDP is enabled there. So with that, let's go ahead and click review and create and get the second machine underway. Okay, and off that goes, and we can see if we go back to virtual machines, VM01 is actually already provisioned there. So there's VM01, and let's go back over to DNS at this point, so private DNS zones, and let's create that virtual network link. So click Add, and we'll give this a link name, DNS test, it's fine for what we're doing here. And then we'll choose the virtual network itself, so SL-DNS test, which I've got there, and click OK. And if we go back into this link, we'll just click it here. The other thing we need to do is just turn on auto registration. This takes a lot of the pain out of DNS management and works for virtual machines only currently, and allows them to auto register with DNS when they are created. So we'll go ahead and update that as well. And you'll notice it takes a little bit of time. Just be patient with it. It's perfectly normal. And close out of that. And let's go now to our virtual machines and see what we have there. See if those are up and running. And yep, we've got VM01 and VM02 there. So let's go back over to DNS. And I do just want to create a record now. And so we'll click Add Record Set. Give this a name. For example, it could be like the database server, db.private.skylines.com. And then we need to choose the IP address for that machine. So to get that, we'll go back over to virtual machines. I'll open that in a new tab. And we'll get that IP address 10.0.1.0.4. So I'll copy that, go back over to the record set and paste that in there. And click OK. So db.private.skylines.com is pointing to VM01 for us. So that's a record we've created there, and you can see it right over here. And you can also see with the self-registration, so VM01 10.1.0.4 and VM02 10.1.0.5. They show as auto-registered now. They've come up into DNS. So with that configured, let's go over to VM01 and go ahead and RDP to this machine. So after you've logged in and closed out all those initial pop-ups that come up with any new server, let's go ahead and open up PowerShell. Just click Start and type Power, and then right-click and run it as administrator. And then what we need to do is type in new net firewall rule dash display name, allow ICMP version 4 in, and then protocol ICMP version 4. And that's going to allow us to ping this machine from VM02. So that looks like it completed successfully. And if we try to ping VM02.private.skylines.com at this point, we can see it tries to ping, but because the firewall is not open on that one, it won't let us yet. But you can see it did resolve to 10.1.0.5. So I'm going to go over to VM02 and do the same thing. We need to open the firewall there. So virtual machines, VM02, connect, download our RDP file and open up. And here we are in that VM02 with PowerShell open. So I'm going to type the same command in again. Okay, and that rule is added. So let's go ahead and try our ping. So we'll do VM01.private.skylines.com. And that pinged successfully. And now let's try ping db.private.skylines.com. And we can see same thing, because we created that record in DNS for DB, we created that record, that A record, which points to 10.1.0.4. If we go back out of RDP session here, go back over to DNS, we can see our A record there for DB for 10.0.1.0.4. And so that's a record we've created, whereas VM01 and 02, those are self-registered. And with that, that concludes this demonstration on DNS. The only other thing to really show you to kind of end off everything, if we go to virtual networks and select the DNS option from virtual networks, you'll see something slightly different here. So SLDNS-test. And if we scroll on the left-hand side, we've got DNS servers. And we can see we still have default Azure provided. If we wanted to, we could still change the DNS servers for this to another DNS server like an Infoblox AD or something like that. But because we've linked the DNS server and we're using default Azure provided, everything is managed for us. We don't have to go in here and actually customize the setting. That's all managed for us. We linked it, auto registration's on, so we're all good from that perspective. And so with that, like I said, concludes this demonstration, and I just encourage you to go ahead and terminate that resource group with all those resources in there. So if you click resource groups, and you've got a couple of VMs that'll build up pretty quickly there. So click SLDNS and go ahead and delete that resource group, and that will clear all those DNS demo pieces out for you.